Hello. Okay, so a few months ago, I was at an event, and we were focusing on accessibility a lot, web accessibility. And so we were at the speaker diner, and we were talking, and it was very fun. And we had very interesting conversations. And during the conversations, I shared the fact that I was disabled many times, like sharing my experiences and all that. And sometimes during dinner, everyone was very happy to be there. We had drunk a little bit, so the noise grew very loud. And one of the women at a table said she had trouble focusing on the conversation because of the noise. And I said that I did too. And then another woman at the table told me, imagine what it would be for someone with a disability. And I was like, okay. Because at this point, this woman knew I was disabled. So it was very bizarre to me. Like, I was like, but I have a disability, kinda. And I literally said it in that very awful tone, like I didn't know what to say else. And the worst thing is that this woman wasn't mean. She wasn't ill-intended. She really was working towards web accessibility. It was a work, but she actually didn't know any disabled people, really. And so she totally forgot that I was disabled between like the first course and dessert or something. And so that's the issue when you have an invisible disability. People have a tendency to forget that you are disabled, even when they know you, even your close relatives or friends and all that. They see you and they think, well, she's not disabled, she's like the rest of us. Like if you meet me, you don't think disabled when you see me. You probably think woman, which I am, or fat, which I am too. Sometimes you will think loud, because I can be loud, but not disabled, because I don't fit the stereotypes of disability. I don't have a wheelchair, I don't have a cane, I don't have like sunglasses or something. And so it's very easy for people to forget about it. But today, you won't forget I am disabled, because I'm going to talk about disability a lot. Like, I'm going to focus on this. I'm not going to talk about web accessibility. It's a very important subject, but this is not what I'm talking about today. Today, I'm talking about disabled people and work, about how we are discriminated against, about how we are discriminated against in tech in particular. Whew, sorry. So, as you can see, or at least hear, I'm French, so I have kind of a weird accent. I actually learned English by reading Jane Austen and watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so it's a kind of very bizarre mixed. So sorry about that. I'm a lot of things that you can see in that slide, sorry. What is very relevant to this talk is that I am disabled and I am neurodivergent. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. I'm also a pet lover, which is not really relevant, but I need a little bit of courage, so I'm going to try to buy you off by showing you my two dogs. The big one is Plume. She's actually my roommate's dog. The small one that looks like she's crying because she wants to make me look like I'm a bad pet owner is Truffa, sorry. It means little truffles, which is like the cutest name ever. I didn't name her, so. And you're going to bask a little bit in the cuteness, and I am going to take a breath. Sorry. So, I want to make you participate a little bit. Can you please raise your hand if you work with with at least a disabled person in your team? Okay, good. Can you now raise your hand if you have ever worked with someone disabled in your team at some point in your work history? Okay, good. So the thing is, most people have, even when they don't know about it, because we say that around 20% of the population is disabled. Sometimes I wonder if the numbers aren't higher because there are a lot of things that we don't really categorize as disability. Like I had severe asthma since I was born, and I didn't know I was disabled. I literally didn't know I fit in the definition of disabled because of that. So for years, if you had asked me if I was disabled, I would have said no. So I think the numbers could be higher. Anyway, the thing to remember is that you can work with disabled people without knowing it. For years, people worked with me without knowing I was disabled because I didn't talk about it a lot. Now, it's kind of hard to miss because I'm like, yeah, disability and all that, but that wasn't always the case. So the thing is, you have to just stop thinking that someone is valid just because they look like they're valid. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. So I wanted to define disability in this talk because I think it's important that we all know what we're talking about, except it's very hard to define because disability can basically be anything. Like there are a wide range of disabilities. If I try to make a list, we're still there tomorrow, so I'm not going to do that to you, sorry. What we have to remember first is that disability is a vast group of very diverse experiences. Like I told you, I was neurodivergent before. Maybe when I said that, you thought about one thing. Probably you thought about like ADHD or autism because that's why we know the most about neurodivergence. Except neurodivergence is already way too many things to be one definition. Like if you have epilepsy, you are neurodivergent, sorry. If you have like PTSD, you are neurodivergent. It's like very different experiences. So it's hard to, I forgot to put the timer on, sorry. It's very hard to define. But what I really like as a definition is what most disabled activists use. It's the idea that we are disabled when something makes our daily lives harder because the outside world isn't adapted to us. Like, to me, disability is a question of not having the accessibility tools in general. Like, basically, I am short-sighted. With my glasses, I have the same life as someone that isn't. So being short-sighted really isn't a disability because I can live my life like everyone, except I have fog on my glasses when I wear my mask, but other than that, it's fine. But if tomorrow you take away my glasses, my most impactful disability will be my short-sightedness. The same idea is that if the world was perfectly accessible for people in wheelchair, then wheelchair wouldn't be exactly a disability anymore. So that's the idea. And I really like it. I mean, we could maybe be a little more detailed in this definition, but I think it's a good thing to keep in mind. Like, it's about what is not accessible. It's not really about what your body can do. Okay, so I still want us to remember 3 things about disability. If you have to remember 3 things about disability after this talk, I'd like to be these 3 things. First one is anyone can be disabled. It's not written on our face. So, Lady Gaga is disabled, and she has a body disability. When you know what she's going through, it's totally amazing what she does as a performer. So anyone can be disabled. Disability doesn't mean one thing. Not everyone is born with it. A lot of the stereotypes about disability is that you are a disabled child, they are a disabled adult. It's really not the case. A lot of us get disability along the years. Sometimes it's even you are already disabled, but another disability comes around after a few years. That's what happened to me. And finally, it should be disabilities and not disability, because, yet again, it's not one experience. It's a ton of very diverse experiences, which means it's a little bit hard to talk about it, because today I'm talking about my own experience. I'm talking about experiences of people I know, but maybe someone in the room will have different experiences. So it's very diverse, and we have to remember that. Okay, so me, I also have disabilities and not disability. Basically, I told you I had severe asthma since birth. I also have chronic migraines, which are very impactful on my life. I have a couple of other stuff. And then I got COVID 2 years ago. And since then, I have what we call long COVID, which is really a pain in the ass, if you forgive my French. Sorry. Because long COVID is something we don't know a lot about, because it's kind of new. So I have no idea where I'm going with this disability. Some people have respiratory issues. I'm very lucky it's not my case, because with the asthma it would have been hell, I guess. But what I have is chronic fatigue, which means that at my best I'm exhausted. I have pain everywhere. I have weird reactions to cold and to hot temperatures. It's my body doesn't know what to do with it. And I have brain fog, which means I have to have notes with me all the time, because at any moment I can lose my thought and it can just not come back. I can spend 10 minutes thinking, what am I supposed to say? What was I doing? What is this concept? It's really annoying, and it's really scary sometimes. And the issue is, we don't know if I'm going to be like that all my life. It is going to stabilize, if it's going to be worse, or if it's going to just disappear, because a lot of people with long COVID stop having symptoms in the first 2 years. Well, it's more than 2 years, so I'm not in that category, but it doesn't mean I'm going to have it for all my life. Maybe it does, we don't know. So it's a difficult balance to find when you have a new disability, particularly something that can evolve, because you don't know what to do with yourself. You have to learn to be yourself again. You have to learn how to do stuff again. For example, this conference was very interesting for me, because I had to rest a lot, and I didn't know if what I was doing was too much or not. I totally crashed on Tuesday night. 5 minutes before, I thought I was okay. I was working in London, thinking, oh yeah, it's great, I'm good, and all that. And suddenly, my body said, stop. You just it's enough. We're going home and we're going to bed until the morning. So it's weird and it's frustrating, to say the least. Okay, so enough about me. Let's talk a little bit about you. I'm going to use an example that we are all comfortable with. Do you think people using wheelchairs can and should work in tech? Okay, we all agree on that. No surprise here. Okay, so no. Please raise your hand if your workplace has no steps. Good. Keep it raised if there is no small spaces that would impair a wheelchair user. Thanks. Is everything reachable for someone in a wheelchair, like even the coffee break stuff and all that? No. For people watching the video one day, there is no more hand raised, and I'm not surprised. It would be even worse if I was to ask you, what about the places you go to lunch with your team? Or what about the tech events you go to? Or if you visit clients, is it does it like check all this checkbox? The issue is that if we agree in theory, it's already great. Like, yeah, wheelchair users should go in tech. Okay. But if we don't make our spaces accessible, our words don't mean a thing. Because we can say, yeah, you're welcome to work with us. But if they can't, like, navigate the place, or are they welcome exactly? I don't know. And the thing is, disabilities, not disability. So we would have to do this kind of checkbox test about different disabilities, and the needs are not the same. Like something that is wheelchair friendly can be not accessible for blind people, for example. So when we talk about being more inclusive of disabled people, it's not just in theory. We have a lot of work to do, and we have to question a lot of our environment and a lot of our practices. For example, me, when I got long COVID, I thought I was very lucky because I was in tech. Previously, I had been in social work, and having a disability would have been awful because it was a work where I was going outside a lot, I had to move a lot, I had to be very energetic all the time because I was helping people, so you can arrive, I'm really tired, your issues are not mine, and all that. So I thought I was very lucky. I thought, well, I'm in tech. It's not hard to ask for what you need in tech. Nothing should mean I can't do my work. And it was particularly true because I don't need a lot in terms of accessibility. What I need is to be full remote because, like, if I take a bus ride, sometimes it takes me like 2 days to recover. So I need to be home, and I need to be rested the most. And I also need to sometimes have my own rhythm because there are days when I need to nap suddenly. Like the other day at lunch, I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to change my sheets because I have energy and I'm okay. And then I changed my sheets and I had to sleep for 2 hours. So, I mean, it's very weird, but I need to sometimes say, no, I'm not okay, I need to sleep, and then I can work. So I thought, well, it's not too difficult. It should be okay. Except, well, I'm a junior, and most companies don't trust me to be full remote because they think well, I don't know what they think, but anyways, they're like, no, you're junior, you need to be at work with us. I'm like, okay. And then I say, but I have a disability. I'm trying to explain. I say, I can't go to work even like 1 day a week would mean I need a week to recuperate, so it's going to be very complicated for me. And then when I say that, most of the time the conversation just stops. It's like suddenly I hit a wall because there are a lot of stereotypes about disabled people. And I mean, it's not always mean. Sometimes it's just because people don't know about disability. But we are seen as sometimes lazy, like we can't be productive. We're seen as incompetent. And we're seen like we're too costly for the company, like we're going to cost way too much money because we're disabled. That kind of thought, like disabled people can't work, shouldn't work, it's called Ableism. Sorry, I don't know how to say it, so you're going to have to look it up. But Ableism is the idea that basically valid people are better than disabled people. It doesn't mean that it has to be mean, once again. Sometimes it's benevolent. It's like, oh, the good little disabled person here. But it's still bad. Like, on Twitter, I follow a lot of disabled people because it's my community and I want to know about disability. And a lot of people in wheelchair talk about how people forcefully help them, like going into buses, for example, like people come and just throw them inside the bus, and sometimes they hurt the disabled people while doing it, or they, I'm not finding my words, so I'm going to say they hurt the wheelchair. It's not just, they break the wheelchair, sorry. And it's very violent when the people in wheelchair say, no, but I said no, you don't help me, I don't need you. And the reaction of the valid person is super violent. Most of the time it's like, but I'm trying to help you, you're being disgraceful and all that. And it's like, no. Because a lot of valid person look at disabled people like we are children, like we can't choose for ourselves, like we can't know what we need and say what we need. Like, for example, the other day I was talking with someone about working on a project together. And when I talked about my disability, like saying, well, I need to be remote and I need to have my own time. And the person was like, oh, well, you know, it's like a very stressful environment, so I think it's not for you. And I was like, well, I mean, I was a social worker. I mean, do you think really that tech is too stressful for me? I mean, that's another thing, but no. So you don't have to hate disabled people to be ableist. You just have to believe there is like valid people, disabled people, and that one is better than the other in a way or another. To try to deconstruct ableism, the thing is to realize that disabled people are people first, and that we all have diverse experiences again, and that we know about ourselves better than valid people know about ourselves. So, do disabled people work? Yes, we do. Most of us work in bad conditions because, well, let's say that good work doesn't hire a lot of disabled people, so we have to go where we are accepted. Some disabled people can't work. That's important to remember. It's not that they are worse than the ones that can. But for some disabled people, disability is like a full-time job, like going to the doctors, and like if taking a shower takes half your day, yes, you already have a job, it's your disability. So that's okay, but a lot of us can and want to work, but we face discriminations, which means like twice as much disabled people are unemployed than valid people. And that statistics is real in France, but it's real like almost everywhere. I was a little bit shocked to see that most countries had the same numbers. Well, not really shocked, but it was weird. Most countries, well, most, let's say, rich countries have laws that supposedly protect us against discrimination. I'm not going to list them because, well, each country has its own. But the idea is that most countries say you can't discriminate disabled people, except how do you prove you've been discriminated? Except if the person is really dumb and send you an email saying, yeah, I'm not hiring you because you are disabled, you can't prove it. So it's super hard to prove discrimination. The best you can do is say, well, I am competent, I am looking for work for like 3 years, I still haven't found work. Maybe there is discrimination, but even that is not really a proof. Like in France, we actually have quotas. Like we have to, each company has to have a percentage of disabled people in their teams, but most companies rather pay the fine than have disabled people. Like when I was a social worker, I did one of my internships in a place that helped teenagers that had issues with the justice system. And so we were under the Justice Department. And this year, there was a big scandal because the Justice Department had to pay like 800,000 euros because they basically didn't hire any disabled person. And so it made a little bit of a scandal, but nothing changed, of course. You're not supposed to discriminate disabled people, and it seemed like it should be obvious, but like in most countries, you're not supposed to discriminate against gender either, and I think most women in this room could attest that we don't have the same employability than men in tech. So discrimination is really a big issue anyway. And it doesn't come, again, it doesn't always come from a place of meanness, like people that discriminate sometimes do it because they have ableist biases that they don't know they have. So they're going to think, oh no, that person can't do the work, but they are not going to realize it's because of the disability they think that, and not because of the background. So we have to be very focused on those issues, and we have to educate ourselves to not be that kind of people. So in reality, we face, as disabled people, we face discrimination. I just talked about that. We face the lack of accessibility because, once again, if you say, yeah, come work with us, but nothing is accessible in the workplace, well, we just can't come. And we also face a lack of representation. I'm not going to go very deep into that, but if I say like autism, you're going to think about like a couple of people with autism in movies, in TV shows, and it's always the same stereotypes. A couple weeks ago, a woman I know, said that autistic people can't talk, and I was like, no, and she just didn't know. She thought it was true, and when I explained to her it was okay, she was like, oh, okay, I just thought that's what I saw in movies and all that, and I was like, yeah, that's an issue. So this lack of representation is a real issue, because if I say to you, think about the last movie or TV show you watched where a disabled person worked in an office or I don't know, I'm pretty sure you're going to have to really try to find that example. And I'm pretty sure most of you won't find one, because even when there are disabled people in TV shows or movies, most of the time they don't work. So that's an issue, because when I come into an interview and say I'm disabled, most people are like, what are you doing here then? Because disabled people don't work. And that's a big issue, obviously. So what about tech? Well, we're supposed to be an innovative industry. Well, I mean, we are. We're supposed to be about kind of science, almost. So we could imagine that we are better at this than other industries. But the truth is, no. The truth is, tech has kind of a closed-minded culture. We are very into like company culture and being all on the same pages on stuff. Like, how many times did I see in a job ad, like, on Tuesday we're going running, and on Wednesday we have a soccer team, and I'm like, yay! Because the issue is, I mean, you can go running on Tuesdays, it's not an issue, but the thing is, in tech, we have to be like the team that does everything together, that go on team building exercises that are mostly sports or outside stuff. And, well, if you're not able to go with the team, most of the time, either you lose your connection to the team, you're outside on the team, or you're not hired anyways. A few months back in France, there was like a kind of weird thing where people were like, oh, we should do running interviews. Like, we go jogging and we interview people. And I was like, I'd rather die. And also, I could die, so no. And I mean, I'm a web developer. Who cares if I can go running? Who cares if I'm fit physically? It shouldn't impact my employability. But the truth is, it does. Because if I come into an interview in a company where they go running on Tuesdays, the person will look at me and think, oh, she doesn't fit the company culture. And I'm going to be screwed. One last time, I promise. Do you think about disabled people when you organize an event? Do you think about disabled people when you organize a party? And when you go out with friends? I'm not shocked by the lack of hand raising, to be honest. I mean, by the way, are you sitting comfortably here? Are you? Because I don't know. I can't sit in those chairs. When I came on the first day, on, was it Wednesday? Yes. On Wednesday, when I came and I went into room 1 because I wanted to see the keynote. And I saw those chairs, and I thought, oh, good. I'm not going to be able to sit. So it's not the worst for me because I'm a speaker. So I had the speakers lounge, which had good chairs. So I basically spent my time there and watched stuff on YouTube because of the live feed. But since then, I'm remembering that not everyone is a speaker. And I'm imagining someone like me that has paid for their tickets, that is very excited to go to a great event. I mean, I'm not going to say anything bad about NDC because it's really a great event, except if I was just an audience member, I wouldn't have been able to watch the talk at all, which is really bad. I mean, fatness is not exactly disability, but most of the time it is linked to disability. Like a lot of us are fat because of disability in a way or another. So that's the kind of stuff you have to think about when you want to be more inclusive. The truth is, being disabled really shrinks your world. It isolates you. I have many friends that I haven't seen in months because just going to see them will be very hard for me, will be very tiring, and I can't take a week off every time I go see my friend. Sadly, I'm not rich enough. So I know that a lot of my friends feel like I'm not doing enough to try to see them. I know they are kind of angry at me, and I don't really blame them because from their point of view, suddenly I don't want to see them, except it's not that I don't want to, I can't. I'm losing friends, I'm losing work, I'm losing hobbies. Like this year I realized I can't knit anymore. I used to love knitting and my hands can't. So, okay, I have to find other hobbies. And it's all really heartbreaking. And it's not, I'm not saying that for you to be sad for me. It's not the idea, but it's just to share the difference between what we talk about when we talk about our disabilities and what we actually experience. Like today, you see me on stage. You see me rock the bad accent. You see me be kind of badass with my righteous anger and all that. Except I have no idea how I'm going to go home tonight because I know I'm going to crash. I know I'm going to be in the train and I'm going to just feel like pain everywhere and it's going to be torture to go home. Last time I was at an event as a speaker. The walk from my station, my train station, to my flat usually takes about 10, 15 minutes. It took me 45 minutes, and I was crying most of the way. So I know it's going to be that tonight, and I'm going to be alone in that, and nobody will know I'm living this. And I mean, once again, I'm not saying that for you to be sad or for you to think like I'm doing too much or I choose to be here. Well, actually, NDC choose to have me, but I wanted to be here. I'm really happy to be here. I hope I'm going to have many other adventures like that. But the truth is, you don't really know what people are experiences. I know it's kind of a, like blank phrases we use all the time, but it's true. But also, like, think about what I could do at work if I can do that kind of stuff. Like, yes, okay, I'm going to have next week off because I need it, but if I can like push myself like that for a talk, why shouldn't I be able to work in a team like anyone else? That really puts into perspective what we think about disabled people and what they are able to do. Like, if I talk about my disability, most people will think, oh, okay, so you can't do anything. You just stay home and take care of your dog, which is kind of true. But I also can do those things. I just need to be kind of helped into doing them by other people. My kind of pitch to finish this talk is that, well, I've always been a very ambitious person, and I think as an industry, we should be the model industry about inclusion of disabled people. I want us to lead the way, like we do about technology. I want us to be way better at what we are about inclusion. I mean, we have the we have the means, we have the technology, we have people can work into our industry. So why wouldn't we do this work? And how do we do that exactly? I mean, I'm going to give you 3 steps. They are like baby steps, but I think if we do that, we're going to grow a lot as an industry. The first step, we educate ourselves. It's very important because if we try to be just helpful, but we don't know what we're talking about, we end up being like this woman that told me, imagine what it would be for a disabled person when she knew I was disabled, which is kind of worse than anything else. So we need to be educated on the subject as people, but also as teams, as companies. We have to really tackle those issues. Then, once we know what we're talking about, we need to change our practices. Well, we need to make the workplace accessible, of course, but we also need to rethink like some of what we do as a team, like to feel like we belong together. Like we can go running on Tuesday, but maybe we can do other stuff too to belong together. We also need to think about how we work, because sometimes we work in ways that exclude people without thinking about it. Like, for example, it's not disability, but the hours we expect of people in our industry. When you have kids, for example, it's super complicated. Well, it's the same when you have disability. Like, I can't work 12 hours a day. Well, sometimes I can, but sometimes I just can't. So we need to think about that to be more inclusive. And then, well, we hire disabled people. And we don't hire one disabled person that's going to be your token. Like, here's Fred, he's disabled. We are a good company. No, it's not like that. We really hire diversity. We try to mix things up. And we just do all of that all of the time. It's a work in progress. It's not something like, I'm not saying in 6 months we are talking again and we all have these steps done. No, it's going to be a real work to do that. It's going to take time. But I think it should be one of our goals as an industry, And I think we really need to remember this, I don't know, we make a poster of it, we make it and we put it in our workplace, but it needs to be always something we thrive to. So it's over. You have a QR code if you want to find more resources. I'm going to add some of them later because, as most people that do talks, I was a little bit late on that. So check it up later also because there will be new content. You can, of course, add me on Twitter or Mastodon, what you prefer. And if you want to, well, I think we have time for question. I think, yes. But even after that, if you want to continue to talk about this, I'm always happy to do so. Is there questions?
Yeah, I have a question, from an employer point of view. So, is there any kind of research on data on what's the kind of the right way, or the do's and don'ts around how to handle reward, performance, and productivity for for disabled and people with disability and people without disability? Is there any kind of what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're asking how, as an employer, you can find resources to know how to deal with disabled people in performance reviews and all that?
Yeah, reward, productivity, and performance.
Yeah, okay. I'm not sure there is really resources about that because sadly, well, we're not hired a lot, so I'm not sure if it's been worked on. And I think what I would my advice would be to talk about it with the person when you hire them and to try to understand what their disability means. That's why for me, we have to first educate ourselves because we need to understand the disability and the experiences around disability to be able to adapt our practices. But I'm not sure there is a lot of data about it because sadly it's not even really a work in progress. It's we are still at step 1 now, so. Yes?
What are helpful ways that at employee level we can advocate for more accessible spaces to kind of senior management? Things like, for example, workspace steps, etc. How can, on an individual level, we create the right kind of pressure to make spaces more accessible?
Yeah, okay. So I don't know if you want to hear it. So the question is about how, as an employee, you can apply pressure, the right kind of pressure to have some change made in your company about accessibility. For me, it's about, yet again, educating. Every time I have had to talk about that with an employer or a manager or something, I always have to have a lot of resources and explain stuff and then say, if you want to know more, check up this and this and this. Because the thing is, most of it is a lack of education. And so sometimes it's yeah, but okay, but we don't have anyone with a wheelchair, so we don't care if there are no steps, if there are steps. And it's yeah, okay, but we don't have people with wheelchair because we have steps also, so maybe we have to rethink what we do about that. So I think you have to educate, which is a very not fun work because it's work baby steps by baby steps. You can't be yeah, okay, so today we are going to be accessible for everything. You have to choose your battles and you have to build on what you last did, little by little. So it's frustrating, I'm going to warn you, but I think it's the only way because you can't force anything. Well, you could if you had every people in the team say, well, we won't work until we don't have accessibility, but sadly it won't happen. So you have to be patient and to be on the educator's side, I think. So you have to educate yourself. You have to create your resources, to have stuff to share. So it's like a part-time job or so. But if you want to do this, you have communities also. You have disabled people that do that work, so you can also invite them to come and to do the work. Like there are many people on social media that are disabled and that talk about disabilities and do it very well. So that would be what I would do first, like try to find the people that are concerned by the issue and that talk about it and like find resources and then educate myself and then try to educate other people. Thank you. Any other question? Yes?
You know, with everybody working, a lot of people working remotely now, has it been getting better or worse for disabilities? Because if people can work from home, they have their home to kind of do what they want and kind of have their own setups. But then that also, I'm assuming, influences like the normal office spaces to be less accessible as well?
Yeah. Well, the question is about if it's going better because we now can work from home a lot. And you would think that, but the truth is, I think it's getting better for some invisible disability because like people know they can work from home, so they don't talk about their disability, because they know they will be able to deal with it at home. But for visible disabilities or disabilities where you still need some adjustment even while being full remote, I think there are no differences. But yeah, I mean, I have friends that are disabled that work from home and that just don't say they are disabled. So, I mean, I think it's a little bit better because of that, but it's not really better as, I mean, it's not inclusive, it's just people not showing who they are. So as an ethics issue, I think it's not great. Yes? Sorry.
Yeah, so for certain disabilities, there's always a debate on whether you declare when you go for an interview. And what's your opinion on that? Do you think people should always declare they've got a disability at an interview? Because some people, it's obviously, you know, you've got a disability, you don't have to declare it.
Yeah.
And then obviously you get company service going around, you know, where you sort that whole this box. And so, you know, so it's just what your opinion is on that.
Yeah, so the question is about my opinion about if people should always declare their disabilities or not. My opinion on that is that we shouldn't have to, but we should be able to. And sadly, to be able to, I think we have to for sometimes, like to be very visible and very kind of activist about it, like I am disabled, this is my reality and all that. But I would never ask someone to do it if they're not comfortable with it, of course, because the truth is, well, you kind of go into a fight when you do that, and you have to be prepared. But like in a perfect world, we shouldn't have to say we're disabled. We should just say, okay, so I need that kind of desk, or I need my hours to be flexible, or that kind of thing. And the company should say, okay, that's okay. And I mean, even a valid person that need some kind of flexibility should have it too. I mean, for me, inclusivity is for everyone. And I believe if we are more inclusive of disabled people, we are going to be also better workplaces for everyone because it's going to be less rigid also for everyone. But right now, sadly, I think we kind of have to. Okay, thank you a lot.